I guess we are finally on live. I hope all the people are tuning in to watch tonight. We had a little technical difficulty. I couldn't invite the guys into the show, and I had to create a new event so that it worked, and it worked. So here we are, episode number 99 on the Daytripper Photo Show. We're talking about street photography and portrait etiquette, if there is such a thing. We've got our good friend and regular co-host Gabriel Bousquet with us tonight. Good day, sir. You've had a day today?
Yes, I've had a busy life.
Life right now with the new house and everything. Yeah, I got a chance to look at your place today. It's awesome.
Yeah, thank you.
But you know, you're prepared for that.
Yeah. It's a little bit, like I was saying last week. It's a little bit more than we were prepared for, but we're getting it taken care of.
Excellent.
So, yeah.
And when it is, it'll be awesome. It's a really cute place.
Yeah, thanks. We like it, and the bee's nest that we discovered today has been. I mean, really, bees really gonna make a nest in a fire pit? You know that bee spray is flammable, right? You just spray and light. Double duty.
Problem solved.
Billions of little flaming bees flying around.
Ooh, where's the photo of that?
No. Yeah, by the time I sprayed them and I came back an hour or so later and sprayed them again, and I think they were all dead because when I lit on fire, nothing happened. But,
all right, good. And then anyway, that would be cruelty to animals, and nobody would want to see that.
Are they bees or wasps, Gabe?
Yellow jackets.
So those are wasps. That's a different thing.
Those are wasps. Okay.
Yes.
Good. Yeah.
And it's very different because a bee can only sting you once. A wasp can sting you 1,000 times.
Oh, aren't you glad you took care of that problem?
So,
there you go.
So burning out wasps is a good thing. And you know what else works well? You know that wasp blaster?
Yeah.
Lighter.
Yeah. That's right. Yeah, I got a whole can of wasp spray. And I dumped the entire can on wherever I saw the opening of, except for save for maybe that much. And I came back 2 hours later, sprayed again, took one of these puppies.
Yeah.
And just did the old psh, and went poof. So.
Big bada boom.
Quite successful. Big bada boom monkey pass.
Of course, with us tonight is our good friend, the photo video guy, Ross Chevalier. Thank you so much for being on our show once more. And you still have duty to do at least one more because you're going to be on our reunion show next week.
The reunion show.
The reunion show. Anyway, thank you so much for being here. I've done some street photography with you, and I know your way of approaching it is the way I like to do it. So we're going to talk about some different opinions.
Aggressive and in their face.
Hi, how you doing?
Yeah. Well, we're going to talk about all these different ways. Street photography.
Carry a big camera, hit them with it, and while they're on the ground, take their picture.
That's the best kind.
No, that's not it.
Daytripper Photo is not responsible for the actions of Ross Chevalier.
It's not liable.
Ross Chevalier is not responsible for the actions of Ross Chevalier. It's very crowded in here.
Oh, yeah. Well, I'm not going to talk about co-hosts that have more than one personality. I'm just going to move past that one. So I'm going to get myself shot. Anyway, we're going to talk about some really cool stuff. There's a lot of differing opinions on what you're supposed to do when you're out making photos in the street. One thing you're not supposed to do is stand in front of a train or a bus or any kind of thing that's going through the street. Trains go through streets, apparently. And that's not a good thing. Street trains. Yes,
they can. Derailed oil tanker trains in Quebec, they can go through the street.
And there's a photo bar.
Yeah, it's not nice.
No. Did that just happen?
No, that happened
like a year or so ago, yeah.
It's horrible.
I don't watch the news on purpose because I don't like hearing about stuff like that. Yeah. Anyway, what do you guys do for street photography? What is the kind of thing that is your favorite thing to do when it comes to any street photography in general? Russ?
I just like to go shoot what's happening, but at the same time, you know, you want to be. I think it's important to be cognizant of the public's increasing fear of privacy invasion, and particularly as cities become more cosmopolitan, we're encountering a lot different cultural mores, and what might be okay for folks who grew up, say, in a Western society, it might be extremely offensive to folks who grew up in a different society. I know there was a guy who used to write for The Sun named David Menzies who was photographing his son at Dundas Young and Dundas Square, and he nearly got beaten up by a family of an immigrant family who practiced a different religion because they thought he was photographing their women. He wasn't, but that didn't matter, right? And so that becomes problematic. Now, and I think as we'll talk about it, we'll find that there's really two schools of thoughts on this. There's the, and I made note of this, the Zach Arias Vallée du Jardin school of street that says, don't let anybody see you making photos. And then there's the Jay Maisel school that says, hi, I'm Jay Maisel. Can I take your photo? Because you're kind of cool looking.
Yeah.
And I'm probably more inclined to go down the Maisel school because I think it's just more respectful. That works for me. It doesn't necessarily work for other people.
Mm-hmm.
But I think what we've seen, because we've heard from people, you've heard, and I've heard, and we got an example last night at the Camera Club where someone said, hey, you know what, I walked up and I asked people if I could take their photo, and they all said no. Okay, that can happen. Sometimes that might be personality. Stop me before I get myself in trouble, Brian.
You know what? The bottom line is there's so much. People are only one facet of what we would shoot, but this is where we have to be courteous and really ask questions. And personally, I'm with you, Ross. I watched the Jay Maisel videos, and seeing the way he shoots is really excellent. He just kind of shoots from the hip sometimes. He'll just kind of grab the camera, take a few shots, and move on. But then again, he's also very polite, and as you are, like we shot the zombie walk together, and you're very gracious. You walk up, can I take your photo? Or you show the camera and you say, this is what I'm doing, and usually you get a pretty decent reaction in that kind of environment. Gabriel, is there a specific kind of street photography you try and get into?
Usually what I do when I do street photography, I like to just sort of walk around, and I don't really click while I walk, but I find an interesting area, and whether it's across the street or a corner or something like that, and then I just stand there and I wait for somebody to walk into it. And I find by doing that, if you're walking around and you walk into somebody else's area and then take their picture, it feels like more of an intrusion. Whereas if you're just standing still and somebody walks into an area that you're watching, then it's almost like there's like an unspoken social agreement that they're kind of walking into your space. And then if somebody looks up and sees me taking the picture, I usually just kind of hold up the camera and smile or give them a little wave or something like that. Normally they're fine with it. I always have the explanation ready in my pocket. I'm on public property. You're allowed to take any pictures that you want. But in all honesty, that's usually for security guards and police officers more than it is for private citizens. A lot of them don't understand that you can take pictures. But
we'll get to some more of the legality of it in a little bit in the meat potatoes of the discussion. But so people generally are what people are shooting when they're doing street photography. I know, Ross, you love architecture, and there's all kinds of other details and so on. There's so much to see. As I said before, people are one facet. Well, this show is actually inspired by one of the Daytripper community members, Glenn Hubbers. He loves to shoot, and on a recent visit into the Henry store, he mentioned to me how he's finding himself mostly shooting landscape and nature photography. And somebody asked him, like, why aren't you doing any portrait? Why don't you do any street photography? He's like, he loves to do it. He'd want to do it, but he's very intimidated by it. And I think that's the impression a lot of people have. They don't want to walk into people's space, as Gabriel mentioned. He lets them come to him. He doesn't necessarily want to go up to somebody and say, hey, can I take your picture? Or he feels a little off about doing that. So what are some things that we can do to get ourselves past that and to make it just a really fun experience when you're out taking pictures on the street? So we're going to talk about that. But first, before we do that, I just want to send a quick shout-out to our friends at LensPen, who have given us these amazing prizes to give away for our photo challenge, which we're going to talk about after our discussion. Third, first, and second place. I like to mix it up that way. They get different prizes. So first place this week is going to get the lens pen cleaning kit, where you get the blower, the cloth, the pen. Second place, you're going to get the lens pen with the sidekick, which is a cell phone cleaner. So speaking of cell phones, we're going to see a pretty cool thing in a second, I hope. And of course, for third place, you're going to get the Lens Pen Original. Ross, speaking of lens pens and cell phone cleaners, what's this I hear? Talk to me.
Well, the Lens Pen cell phone cleaner does a beautiful job on something that looks like that.
Oh, so that's the iPhone 6 Plus.
Yeah, and as everybody says, it is big, and it is very much resembles in size. What was the one that my daughter had, Gabe? The Samsung, remember? Is it a Note? You guys were trying to fix it for like 45 minutes when we went to the auto show.
Time. I thought that was a Galaxy.
It might have been, but it is
a Galaxy. It's 5.5 inches, so I'm not sure how big a Note is.
Yeah, it is about that size. I did find that I put the case on it because it is bigger than most people's hands, but for my aging eyes, I'm loving it. And in fact, one of the things that I've discovered for myself is it may negate the need for a smaller tablet entirely.
It's a phablet. It's a phone/tablet.
Yeah, I don't think it's really that big, but for example, I read a lot of books online. I use a service called ScribD. I don't know if anybody's heard of this. This is brilliant. It's every book you could ever want for $9 a month.
Right, it's like the Netflix of books.
It is. That's exactly it. It's like the Netflix of books.
And that's ScribD, you say?
Yeah, ScribD.
Okay.
SCRIBD. And they've got like 300,000 books. And it's a kind of a flat. It's like a library, but you pay them $9 and you can watch them on any device. And really, that's a big use for me for this. Also for note taking, obviously in meetings. I'm very, very impressed. Okay, it's day 2.
Yeah.
I am very impressed with the overall usability of it.
Gabriel and I were talking earlier about this, and he suggested that maybe they were thin and there was problem with it bending.
I think
I wasn't suggesting that. I was just watching a whole bunch of videos online where they were taking the iPhone 6, comparing it to the Note and the HTC One and stuff, and applying a certain amount of pressure. And the iPhone at the volume button seems to have a structural issue where it will bend easier than other phones.
And that may be true. I'm going to say, if you stick it. So what did Ken Ray say on his show today? People. Skinny jeans. There's no reason. There's never a reason for skinny jeans. Yeah, you probably wouldn't want to put this or anything this size in your front pocket. And if you stick it in your back pocket and you sit on it, it's probably not Apple's fault.
Yeah, exactly.
It's your parents' fault.
The nice thing about the 6 Plus is that because it's a lot larger and they didn't go crazy with the resolution, it's got a larger battery. So I know that's been one of the big problems with the iPhones is the battery life, and this one seems to have fixed that.
Yeah, I can't. I've heard that complaint up until yesterday. I was using an iPhone 5, and I would get through the whole day on a single charge. Yeah, I would have to charge every night.
Right.
But I have to do that with my Sony anyway, so my Sony is 10 times better than any other phone I've had.
I'm kind of used to the idea of charging at night.
Yeah.
I believe, though, and I think it's manifest in a lot of these mobile devices, there's stuff that happens in the background with some of these apps that absolutely doesn't need to happen.
It's a good point.
But it is.
And I heard a lot of that's been addressed in iOS 8.
iOS 8 allows you to turn a lot of stuff off that you never knew was happening.
Yeah.
In iOS 7, and I would fully expect that the next, the evolving iterations of Android will do the same sort of thing.
Yeah.
I mean, it's an evolutionary process no matter what platform you're on, right?
Yeah. They're pretty evolved feature-wise, so now they're just getting into fine-tuning.
But, at the same time, not to squirrel away too much. We have a path to take.
Right.
The phones these days, they have a lot of stuff going on in the background, and I always hate having to turn all that off because I don't know what's going to kill my phone if I do it. So that's a topic for a whole other show, and I'm sure we have had cell phone conversations before, but I don't think we ever talked about that part of it. So we'll definitely bring that up. What goes on in the background of a cell phone and how to make it faster.
We should have a show, maybe show 102, where we just talk about whatever comes up. Don't have a topic. Just talk about
Stuff.
Sure.
Yeah. It's all going to be photography related anyways, but we should just jibber jab about stuff.
We
Maybe
can
that'd be
definitely do
interesting.
that.
Yeah.
Well, it's interesting that we're talking about street photography tonight, because the devices most used for street photography, really, these guys.
It's a good point.
It's the smartphone. And I think that part of the sensitivity that we're seeing as photographers is that the general public are a lot more aware that there's a lot more photographs being made. The difference is this looks to, and this sounds horrible, but to Joe Public, this looks less threatening than a camera does.
Yeah.
Yeah, the quality I can get out of this is pretty amazing.
As we saw at the rodeo.
Yeah, exactly. You know, you can make a 20 by 30 print out of this device, or a friend of mine's got the Lumia, the 1040.
Oh, the Nokia thing.
The Nokia.
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, 41 megapixels. There's a lot of data. It's very small pixels, but there's a lot of data there, and the quality is really stunningly good. So, from a street perspective, I think there is something that's happening in the minds of the public. They're much being photographed. They're much more aware of the state. I'm sorry, I don't mean to sound like an anarchist, but the state watching everything all the time.
Right.
And folks, and it makes people sensitive. Right? I don't know if you saw this week that Metro Toronto Police are putting cameras on the vests of their officers.
Right.
And the theory is, well, it will reduce complaints about officer abuse.
Right.
Because Big Brother's always watching.
Well,
it's the theory is that an officer will be less likely to beat a young punk with a telephone book. Not that I know anybody who had that happen to them when they were younger living in Toronto, if they have a camera recording it the entire time.
Right. So that's the analogy that's put forward. But what do regular folks think? Regular folks, like, I don't know if you guys have ever traveled in the UK. You can't go 4 feet.
Right.
Without being photographed.
Yeah.
It is literally the surveillance state.
But if it wasn't for that, how would they solve any crimes on CSI? I mean, they get that grainy corner store video, and then they enhance. Can you clear up that section there? Oh, look at the reflection in his eye.
Yeah, right. You're right, Gable. I keep forgetting that you can drill into a single pixel and pull out an entire galaxy of data.
What's wrong with you guys? Don't you have that software? Come on, I had that with my old freaking VIC-20.
No, I don't have that software.
I want to release photo software called Enhance.
Yeah, exactly.
Okay,
we're really squirreling here.
totally scrolling one more time.
I got an email about that earlier today.
About enhance?
Enhance your enhanced.
Okay. All right, well, first of all, before we go any further...
Before we squirrel anymore, did you see that woman in Florida?
No. My mother?
No. You really got to Google this one. Her story is she got tired of men staring at her.
Oh, this is one about the Arnold Schwarzenegger.
No.
Yeah, the Total Recall girl.
That's right.
She added a third boob.
Yes, she has 3 breasts.
She literally...
It's a fake. It came up today that it's a fake.
Well, they're saying it's a fake. She's declaring it's real.
Oh, okay. Oh,
well, if it's a third breast, it's a fake. So bottom line is, it's a fake.
So her story was she didn't like that people stared at her, so she got a third breast installed. I don't know what you do.
She was a massage therapist, and she wanted to look unattractive to men, and she figured by adding more of the one feature that men look at the most,
it would help her, and it wouldn't influence in any way her ability to get a television show.
Right.
Anyway,
I would like to be less flammable, so I will pour more gas on me.
Exactly. Exactly.
Okay.
And then you wonder why, when you go out on the street with a camera, people are sensitive. The world is full of
crazy people.
True, it's fuzzy
Ross
logic.
Chevalier, bringing it around.
Bringing it back around.
What I
Okay,
do,
before we go any further, guys, we have to look to the Q&A for a quick second and say hello to Lena because she's watching, and she said hi to us like way at the beginning of the show, and we've ignored her ever since then. So,
well, hi, Lena, and thank you for being the one viewer. As far as we know.
No, I can see there's at least 9.
Oh,
That's a lot. That's awesome. I don't care. 1 viewer, 900 viewers. It's all fine as long as we're talking about good stuff.
Guest. I don't know how this crap works. I don't see the 2 of you.
Well, we talked about
just one life tonight.
Oh well, you've changed my life tonight, so that's all for a good thing.
Not necessarily for the better, but
That's always for the better.
It's a change.
Okay, I need to know this because we've talked a little bit about cell phones and how that's some kit you can use. But what other kit would you use to do street photography? I know everybody's ranting and raving about the Fuji mirrorless cameras.
Mm-hmm. I think just mirrorless in general. I hear a lot of people because they're just a lot less intimidating. Yeah. I think it was Scott Bourne did an experiment where he lives in Las Vegas, and he walked into the mall with a DSLR, and within about 2.5 minutes, security was escorting him out, and he walked in the next day with a mirrorless
and a tripod.
And a tripod, and he was shooting there for like 2 hours, and nobody said boo. So, yeah, there's a different perception when you pull out the big monsters towards the little point and shoot. And in a lot of cases, especially for street photography, you can get the exact same quality image.
Absolutely.
I would have to agree with Gabe's point here. I wouldn't consider myself a street photographer, although I certainly enjoy it. I find it is, if I carry the Leica versus the 1DX, it is a little bit more conducive.
Well, let's just sit here and analyze that for a second, Ross. The Leica is this big.
Yeah.
And the 1DX is this big.
Yeah.
It's the difference between seeing a picture and going, eh? And going,
It's not that heavy.
Okay, we got to go to the Q&A for a second, guys.
It's not like a D4.
First of all, Lou, thank you for watching. I'm glad you found us. And Joe says that the link that we posted didn't work. He found us through YouTube, so I'm glad that you went through the effort. And the best part about this Q&A, and the reason I went to the Q&A is because I love Joe's idea. He says he's contemplating adding a third eye and putting it in the back of his head. So
I think that might draw attention from people, Joseph. So
I just think it would be pretty cool if you wore a hat. I mean, you'd see all this up here, and the back would be black, and it would be anyway. I'm putting too much thought into it. And apparently there's more people than we thought because Byron's saying there's more of us there. Don Hennessy is saying that there's at least 10 people watching. So, you know, it's all good. We're good to go. And speaking of going, yes, mirrorless.
Sorry, can I just, one quick point on an earlier topic about walking up to people unless that's, no. One trick that I've heard of, if you're shy about walking up to people and you're shy about, like whenever I'm shooting, I never ask for anybody's permission. But if that's the kind of way, if that's the way that you want to do it, go up and say, "Hi, I'm really sorry to bother you. I hate doing this, but I'm taking a photography class, and in order to graduate, I have to take 10 street portraits. Would you mind being one of them?" And then they feel like they're doing you a favor, and you're making it sound like you don't want to be there. Right? So it's one tactic that I've heard.
What you're saying is it's perfectly fine to lie.
Absolutely.
I came into a town for a job interview. I'm out of cash. Could I get $20 for cab fare to the train station?
See, I'm more apt to do something like that.
Oh,
yeah.
And by the way, can I take a picture as you hand me the money?
I used to work downtown at 36 Toronto Street, and I met that guy every day of the week. He needed just $20 cab fare to get home from his interview.
I ran into that guy about a year and a half ago at the Baskin Robbins in Aurora, and I gave him a loonie, and he looked at it and goes, "It's better than nothing." And this morning on the way to school, my son brought it up, saying that guy was a real meanie. I mean, it really made an impression on Jaden.
Wow. Wow, I hate to hear what he says about me when I'm not around. Anyway, what about, though, a simple 50 mil? Like, a lot of people will do street photography, and they'll get down low, and they'll use their super wide lenses and things like that. This is my favorite little kit right here, doing any street photography. D7100, otherwise known as the Schwartz. Thank you, Ross, for the name. With a simple nifty 50. I've got my cotton carrier strap on there. Thank you, cotton carrier, for that. I don't go anywhere without it. And just clip it on your belt, and that's it. I don't have a stupid strap around my neck. Sorry, guys, people who love straps, doesn't make sense to me. Why do you need to have crap hanging all over you? I mean, that's just drawing attention when you have all these things. Not only saying, look, I've got an expensive camera, but, hey, look, I've got a Nikon D700 or a Canon 1DX.
Well, if you use the strap that came with the camera, you're just saying, like, hi, mug me, look what I've got.
Rip me out.
But I use a rapid strap, so it keeps it down by my side. And
everybody has their own way, though. That's the thing. You've got to find something that's comfortable, right? Yeah. Something mobile, something you can grab quickly, and something that goes away fairly discreet. And if you have that, an SLR becomes an entirely feasible product to use.
I suppose that's true. I don't have a body that doesn't have a big battery grip on it, other than the Leica. So everything in that regard is going to be somewhat imposing to people. What I do find is if I use the Leica with a neck strap, and no, I don't use the Leica named neck strap, and I use black gaffer tape on all my cameras to cover the logo.
Mm-hmm.
When it's around your neck, you do actually look a little bit, and if you can do the
I look like a tourist.
The tourist look, it is actually a lot less threatening to people. You know, Jay Stinson and I went downtown last year, walked around St. Lawrence Market, and we did a lot, and the Distillery District, we did a lot of, just candid street shots, and nobody said a damn thing.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. I think it's also...
Nobody looked horribly...
And that was your SLR, or that was the Leica?
I was just using a Leica, but Jay was using his Nikon.
Okay.
Mm-hmm.
And I think he was like a 24-70, like not, hi, I am Joe Monster Lens. None of that crap.
Right.
But Maisel does it with a 28-300, so I think it's possible.
Mm-hmm. A lot of the horror stories that you hear are horror stories from the States, and it's if not necessarily from Canada. We seem to be a little bit more relaxed here. The only time I've ever run into any problems is if I'm at a park taking pictures of Jade and, other parents freak out. But I can show them that, I'll look, yes, he's in a crowd of children, but I have a lens that makes it so that I can look at this picture. It's only him. Look, it's only him. It's only him. It's only him. And I'm able to zoom in, and even though there's a whole bunch of kids around, get a picture of just him. And usually they shut up and go away.
No, that's a good point, because I think Angie mentioned to us once at Camera Club, Brian, that a couple of mothers, basically chased her because she was photographing in a park. And I mean, she's the most inoffensive person you'd ever see.
It's true.
So there are situations, and I think Gabriel's hit on one, where if you go into it and you don't have your own kid there, don't go into it. And that's around children.
Yeah.
The sensitivity is just so high.
Yeah, and you know what? What are you risking for? A photo of a kid?
It's not helped by the media party, right?
Right.
Because the media party will tell you that everybody with a camera is a potential pedophile.
Yeah. I went to the park with my friend Craig, and I've told this story before, so for those of you that have heard it, I'll try and say it quicker. And he's a photographer as well, and so am I, so we had our large cameras, and mother confronted us. Our kids were both playing there. Our mother confronted us. And I basically said to her, I'm like, listen, if I wanted to take pictures of your children, I would not walk into the middle of the park with a camera. I'd be parked in a car a quarter mile down there with a zoom lens taking pictures and then zooming in when I got home. Like, if I wanted to take pictures of your kids playing, you would never see me.
Yeah, it's really not the people that are right there in the open that you have to worry about, I guess.
As much. Yeah, exactly. I'm not going to walk in with this huge camera and sit on the teeter-totter.
Yeah, and you're right, Gabe, but you know what they don't know? Because at night they go home and they watch Man's Bridge on CBC. right?
Yeah.
And their job is to create unrest and fear, and a demand for more police and more government control.
Yeah.
I mean, I'm sorry, people watching the show may hate that statement, but that's the nature of what they're trying to achieve.
Well, it's fear TV.
It is fear.
Happiness doesn't sell. So just something to keep in mind if you are going to do street photography. Know your rights, and I think we're going to get into that a little bit later on.
Well, let's get into that right now. The rights of people, I think ultimately the question is, are you in public property or private property?
Right.
So if you're in public, what's the rules, Gabe? You know them.
In public property, you can take a picture of anything at any time for any reason.
That's correct.
Now,
can you take a picture of a cop?
yes.
Yes, you can.
Yeah.
You can. However, and we're starting to see more and more of this. We're seeing harassment of photographers by law enforcement simply because they made a photograph of them.
Right. One thing
Is not a crime.
Yeah, Pinnack.
It's not.
One thing to keep in mind: once you take a picture, that picture is your property. You own it. It cannot force you to delete any pictures, and if they take your camera and give the card back formatted, they have committed a crime against you.
Yes, they've violated your copyright.
Yeah.
And they've forcibly seized your moral copyright, which is a violation of the Canadian Constitution.
Yeah.
The best part is they're too stupid to realize that you can actually just do a data rescue and pull them back. But that's a different conversation.
Well, and I had a conversation with an officer once, and he wasn't too happy that I was taking pictures. And he's like, well, what if I take your camera? Now, most police officers don't know a lot about photography. I was shooting with my 5D Mark III, but I just said, well, that's fine. As soon as I take a picture, it's automatically updated to the cloud. I could take my card out right now and break it in half. All my pictures are still there. You're not getting anything.
Whether it's true or not.
Whether it's true or not. If I take a picture with my phone, the second I take it, it's updated.
So that's true.
Yeah.
And this is another thing that, maybe one day the SLR will have a cell phone and all that built right into it. Or a cell phone will have the quality of an SLR, I think is really what we'll see.
Happy days.
Happy days.
So legally, yes. Now, one gray area, if you're downtown and you're in front of a privately owned building, a certain percentage of the walkway in front of that building, it does belong to that building. But as long as you're on a sidewalk, an actual sidewalk, that is owned by the city, that's public property. So if you set up a tripod in front of the Eaton Center and you are in from the sidewalk, they can legally ask you to move because that's, even though it's a common walkway area, that is their private property. If you walk over to the sidewalk, as long as you're not in people's way, causing disturbance, because that's illegal as well, you can shoot anywhere that you want and do anything that you want.
Yeah, and I mean, we're talking a little bit about, the law and legality. And I don't want to scare people off from going out and making photographs in the street just because they think that they're going to get harassed by somebody. Because, as you said earlier, Gabriel, at least in Canada, most of the time, it's not going to be a hassle.
Right.
Except where children are involved. And I would strongly advocate being respectful of people near their places of worship.
That's actually...
Whether you subscribe to their religion or any religion, it's just about being respectful.
And I think that's what we always have to say. The bottom line is be respectful of anything. If you're doing street photography and somebody says, don't take my photo,
okay,
don't take their photo. Sorry?
Right.
Move on. There's other people.
And if you want to, and I've done it before where some guy looked like he was getting upset, I said, look, click, deleted. Are you happy? And he said, yes, I am. I'm like, great. Have a wonderful day.
Yeah, I've done the same thing. Happened here in Newmarket at the carnival.
What happened?
I was taking a photograph. Two young ladies said, "Are we in the picture?" And I said, "I don't know." I said, "It's dark, so we don't want our picture taken." I said, "Okay, come on over here and take a look. Do you see yourselves?" "Yeah, there we are." I said, "Are you recognizable?" They go, "No." I said, "Do you want me to delete the photo?" "I guess it doesn't matter." Problem solved.
There's probably a lot more recognizable photos of them taken on every street corner, as you're saying.
Oh, and there might be, but you know what? Nobody knows who you are in the dark from behind.
Yeah. Paul, just want to say hello. Thanks for watching. Glad that you're here and you found us.
Unless, of course, you're Joe
Sounded
LeDuc.
really ominous.
Back of your head.
What sounded ominous?
Nobody knows who you are in the dark from behind.
Oh. And then you said, except if you're Joe LeDuc and you have an eye in the back of your head?
That's what I said. That's
right. Oh, okay.
Okay, so street photography, the legalities and so on, ultimately be respectful. If you're taking a picture of somebody and they ask you not to, don't. If you find something interesting, go for it. Now, what about the people, like I made a comment in our notes here. I was looking online, doing some research for the show, and I found this article by Blake Andrews, who says street photography is all about the candids. You should never interact with your photo subjects. In his 10 rules of photography, he had pretty much every rule had to do with you can't talk to people, you can't look them straight in the face, they can't be looking at the camera. You know, it's all that, you know, you cannot have that direct interface. Mm-hmm. And I love Ross's answer to this. Ross, would you please do me a favor?
Are you sure? Because, I mean, I used a couple of colorful metaphors in my response.
You know what? This is about 10:15 p.m. right now, and it's YouTube, so go for it.
Okay. So when I read this, and look, everybody's entitled to their opinion, because opinions are like a part of an anatomy. Everybody's got at least one. I understand Mr. Andrews' perspective, but I think it's utter bullshit. Alfred Eisenstadt, Henri Cartier-Bresson, literally thousands of others did wonderful street photography, and they regularly interacted with their subjects. You know, you think of Cartier-Bresson's picture of the young boy carrying the bottle of wine home to dinner, or Cartier-Bresson's picture of the man skipping through the rain puddles. He interacted with his subjects because he showed respect and appreciation for who they were and what they did. That's like, how is that bad? And no offense, but where does this dork get off writing a rule that says it's not street if you've talked to your subject or they've seen you? You know,
I was shocked actually when I read it.
You know what that is? If all those rules are true, that makes you a voyeur and a spy.
Yeah.
And you desperately need to have the shit kicked out of you.
Well, I won't go that far.
No, seriously. If you go out of your way, if you go out of your way, that every one of your photos that you make it anywhere, anytime, follows those rules, you truly are not participating in society at all.
No, I totally agree with that.
Truly a voyeur.
Yep, true to the word. True to the word. So it's interesting, this dynamic of there's certain people who care that they want to have that discreetness and so on, and then there's other people who are more like human and actually talk to people. I don't think that there's any right or wrong answer. Well, there is to me. I agree with Ross on this one. The bottom line is if I only saw my photography as shooting from the shadows and staying away from people's line of sight and so on, I would feel like a sneak. So it's not about that.
No, it's not. I mean, Lena makes the point that asking is cool in some ways to take specific kinds of photos, though if I want to shoot a spontaneous natural shot, I just go with the trouble of it, LOL. Okay, cool. I mean, that's your choice, right?
Well, it's laugh out loud because she's a troublemaker, so that's just who she is.
You know what? I think, but it's her choice, right? If she wants to engage that way, peace. We have the right as adults to make decisions.
Mm-hmm.
I guess it's because I'm old, and I admit I'm old, and I perhaps come from a different generation, and I know I do.
Oh, even I do.
But rightly or wrongly, and I'm not criticizing anybody, the way I was raised is you try to be respectful to everybody, regardless of race, creed, or color. And being interactive allows you to be an ambassador for whatever you're doing.
Well said.
Mm-hmm.
And if I had the choice, I would prefer to be an ambassador for photographers and not be liked or welcomed in some areas than to be invisible and get photos that I think are cool, but in the long term, because I'm not a good example because I post very little on the web. That's a whole different show. But if I'm going to post stuff, what if the person sees it and they become offended or hurt? You know, how do they feel? Well, they actually now they feel that somebody has invaded their space without conscious without respect.
Oh, you know,
and
they
you know
have
what?
it already.
Peace. I get it. It's going to happen. I walk downtown. If I take the subway, we talk about going on the train to see the Kelby thing in November, right?
Right. Yep.
How many times are we going to be photographed on our way there?
Mhm.
Thousands of times, and we won't know.
Right.
We won't know, and it won't just be the surveillance cops. It will be people with cell phones.
Mm-hmm.
It'll be the background of a traffic camera.
Mhm.
We're all being imaged all the time. That has the potential to be extraordinarily negative. And yeah, Gabe, I know you read science fiction. I don't know how well you know Daniel Suarez. He wrote Damon.
Rings a bell. Oh, yeah. I've heard of the book for sure.
And I'm reading his current one called Influx. And so, yes, I admit to a slightly heightened level of paranoia against being observed by elected pseudo-officials. But the point of fact is, we're all being observed, so if we're going to be photographers, and this is what we do, I appreciate Lena's point that sometimes you just can't ask. The timing doesn't allow for it. But for the most part, how bad is it? How awful is it just to say, hey?
Yeah, I'm just reading that too.
Just reading Dodd's.
Don just blew us both away. Okay, so I'll read this. He goes, he did the same in a beach in the Dominican. He lined up a shot on the beach, and this topless lady walked in front of his camera as he clicked. He didn't even see her. He says it startled both of them. He just jumped up, he ran over and asked if she wanted to delete it, and she just laughed and walked away. So, I mean, but that's also a different environment. I mean, if you did the same thing in France, you know, if you did the same thing in Europe where it's a little bit more free, you'd get a different reaction than you would if you're, you know, at Fairy Lake in the splash pad and you just whoop. It's just you're going to get different reactions anywhere you go.
You do that?
Now,
all the time.
That's frightening.
On that point, a little bit about ethics and stuff. I've heard different opinions from different photographers about etiquette about homeless people. Some photographers say never take pictures of people less fortunate than yourself, whereas other photographers are like, hey, it's street photography and they are the street.
Right.
What is your philosophy on the shooting of homeless people?
It's funny you ask. Just last night at the Camera Club, Julie's photo, Ross.
Yeah, Julie Broca had a beautiful photograph. I mean, it was a beautiful piece of art of a homeless gentleman.
And
it actually got more discussion than most of the
wasn't there last night. Okay.
Yeah, and you know, it invoked an enormous amount of discussion. And I thought it was a good discussion. One of the points that was raised, the one that I would tend to agree with, not because I think I'm smarter than anybody, but it's because how I've done it, is if I feel compelled to make the photo, how do I thank the person?
Right.
And if the person is homeless, what if I buy them a meal? And I don't mean give them $5. I mean walk them into a McDonald's and buy them a breakfast.
Right.
Or something like that. Now, I'm not saying everybody has to do that.
Right.
You do what you want. But if I choose to photograph someone who is less fortunate than I am, I'm gaining something from that, and I don't think it's. I choose to try to be respectful. And by the way, I've been turned down to offer to buy them a meal or buy them a coffee. Sometimes it's just give me the money.
Yeah. Well,
right.
There's other things.
You know, and okay, it is what it is. But I'd rather try to offer.
That's
I usually
extremely generous.
I don't give money to panhandlers. I give money to associations that help the homeless, right? So that's sort of how I justify it. And in all honesty, when I see some of the people standing on the street corners, you know, at the lights, they've got newer jackets and better looking shoes than I own. So, but you know, but if I'm
hang on a second. Hang on. Ross is the curmudgeon of the show, Gabriel. Just say it.
No, I mean we donate as a family. We donate, a good chunk of money every year to organizations that help the homeless, right? So we sort of do our part that way. But if I see somebody and I take a picture of them, then I donate, $1 or $2, and I let them know what it's for.
I would do that with a busker for sure.
Well, I've done that with buskers. I've done it. I bought when I worked downtown. On every other Friday, I would buy breakfast for this homeless guy, and it wasn't that he was on the corner doing the same shtick every day. I mean, there used to be a lady on Bloor Street who had a specific spot.
Yeah.
And she was there 5 days a week, fixed schedule.
Yeah.
At the end of the day, got in her car and drove to her apartment in Thorncliffe Marketplace.
Yeah.
Her gig was being a panhandler.
Served her well.
And okay, whatever. But I think if we're aware of what's happening, there's a difference between the panhandler and the truly homeless person that you might choose to help out. I think most of us figure it out pretty quick.
Actually, Lena's point, she believes homeless people are the ones who need the most privacy. They're outside on the streets as they don't have a place to go. They don't have shelter, and shelter is about privacy. That's a really good point.
It is.
You're basically taking a picture of them inside their home.
Exactly, and they can't control that. It's like when you're 14 years old living with your parents and they decide to move, and you can't control that. You've got to move.
Yeah.
And bringing up back old history here.
It's kind of like, it's going to sound insensitive and crass, but it's kind of like taking pictures at a zoo, They have no option but to be there, and you're kind of shooting into their area.
Well, it is very much like that, with the difference that the zoo animals don't have the mental capacity to compartmentalize their state.
Right.
Right. There used to be a lady who slept on a grate at the corner of York Street and King Street. Southwest corner. She was there all the time. And crowds of people would go by her every day. And it was both fascinating and terrifying to watch, because they didn't see her, but she didn't see them either. Because in order to perhaps, and I am not a medical professional, but perhaps to deal with her state, she had to compartmentalize herself out of society, in as much as society kind of, don't step on marginalized her, or don't step on that because it might move.
Mm-hmm.
Right.
You do hear a high level of insensitivity, particularly in large cities. But the reality is, and it's sad, there are homeless folks everywhere in our country.
Yeah.
It doesn't have to be in the big city.
Right.
It can be anywhere. So I think the point comes back to, if you're going to photograph them, first, I think you do need to be respectful. I think Lena's point is very valid. But if you feel like it's really important, or if it helps you with the exercise of justifying making a donation, then do so.
Right.
I don't give to panhandlers, but if I make a photograph of this person, it's sort of a goods in kind type of scenario. I mean, it's an interesting philosophical turn, but you, as a person, you make your choice about how you're going to approach it.
For sure. No, okay. So we've talked about street, we've talked about things like that, and it's great. But what other stuff is there we can shoot that's not as stringent on the rules? There's a lot of other things that we can get out there and do. Toronto Film Festival just happened. Yeah, what are the rules for shooting at TIFF? I mean, what are we, paparazzi now? I mean, there's so many people who go down to TIFF and want to shoot that. What's the rule about that? Is anybody allowed to just do that?
Well, I think the unfortunate reality is that when someone's career takes them into celebrity, they unfortunately forfeit a certain amount of personal space. Now, if you are a celebrity and you go out to a film festival and you walk on a red carpet,
you're fair game.
That's explicit approval to be photographed or videoed or whatever, because you're putting yourself out there.
I'm just checking out. Lena just posted here. She'd like to mention Vivian Mayer and her street work. It's amazing. I like the fact that when you go through her photos, it's both interaction with people and is so strong. Interaction with people, which is so strong, I should say.
Yeah, Lena, I will really appreciate you bringing that up. I think it's absolutely fascinating that Vivian Mayer never wanted anybody to see her photographs.
Really?
Ever. The only reason anybody knows they exist at all is that she worked as a nanny, and she made photographs and never told anybody. And only after she passed that her heirs, opened these boxes and went, "Oh my goodness, look at the incredible work that this woman did." And Lena's right. Vivian's stuff is absolutely stunning.
I'd like one day for 100 years after I die for somebody to find my hard drives and find all my photos that I have and think for 1 second, oh my God, look at all the amazing photos that this guy's taken. Because it's crap. It's all crap.
I don't believe that it's all crap. And with great respect, I mean, they found tens of thousands of photographs that Vivian Mayer took. We don't see all of them.
Right.
So we see the curated versions. It's kind of like any of us. We go out and photograph. If I go out and I go downtown Toronto to shoot, I'm probably going to spend a lot of time on architecture because it interests me.
Right.
Mm-hmm.
And the people interacting with the architecture. Ron Clifford does some really great looking down kind of shots from the tops of buildings that allows him to tell a story about how cities interact. In fact, there's a fairly, and I'm going to get Gabriel's ire up here by mentioning my favorite band. There's a very old Rush song called the.
I like Rush. It's just fun to pick on people who like Rush too.
There's a really great song called "The Camera Eye" from Moving Pictures. So one of the 1977. I'm thinking. I could be wrong.
Year, but it's one of my favorite albums.
Might have been 1980. And the camera eye is really Neil's perspective while traveling of looking at the streets of London and the streets of New York, and what he saw as an amateur photographer, how the people moved, what it told him about the cities themselves. So if I go out to shoot street, that's really kind of what I'm looking for. I want to be able to, I want to get a sense of place and a sense of the humans that are how they're interacting, right? And we've seen. I mean, I'm in my mid-50s, and I've worked in the Toronto area since. Well, my first job was at Records on Wheels on 629 Yonge Street. So when I was 14, so I worked in the around people downtown over the course of my life. So over 40 years, and Toronto is very much a different city today than it used to be. And I think photography is a great way. If I say capture for posterity, that sounds horribly arrogant, but it tells the story. I mean, I love looking at photographs from the 30s, 40s, and 50s because they give me a sense of place and time. And I think that any of us who are going out to make photographs, and let's call it street, even if it's just architecture and buildings and the interaction of the people who live there and who work there, we actually are contributing. We are contributing to the sense of history. Now, there's a lot more of us doing it today than ever were. But there were a lot more people making photographs in the past than we recognize, because to come back, and Gabe says I always do this, I always circle back, back to Lena's point, how many Vivian Mayers don't we know about?
And again, on Lena's point, she'd like to know what you think is the reason why she kept it as a secret.
Well, and the truth is, so Lena, I don't know, but what I have read, because I've done a bit of research into her, because I think I think that the story, her story, is even more interesting than her photos. What I read is she never thought that they were good enough to show anybody.
Well, a lot of us feel that way.
They were personal. They were hers.
Mm-hmm.
She didn't
Yeah,
feel
I think.
she didn't feel compelled to post them anywhere.
Well, she didn't have Facebook, so you know.
Well, I think that.
But she may not. Even if she did, she may not have chosen. She may have chosen not to. There are a lot of great photographers out there who absolutely live in terror of the idea of putting things on Facebook or Google Plus.
Mm-hmm.
You know, they think the idea of posting a photo of your lunch is, you know, that's like a capital sin, or whatever, however you refer to sins. Sorry, I'm absolutely the wrong guy to go down that road.
What were you gonna say, Gabriel?
Well, it's just it just speaks to a different time and culture. Whereas now, you know, half the time when I take a picture, whoever I'm taking a picture of immediately says, "Let me see it." You know, and you know, photos are a lot more public thing where you can take a picture and have it shared with 1,000 people immediately. Whereas back then, you know, it was just you that saw it.
Don makes a point here. He says, well said, Ross, there's homelessness in Newmarket. To get back to the homelessness for a second, aka In From the Cold, Community Bread, and Valley View Alliance Church, there's a lot of homeless in Newmarket. In fact, speaking of mixing photography and homeless people, on our last Bring on the Night session, we were at Fairy Lake, and we were under the gazebos, and it was in the middle of a rainstorm. And, you know, I would go out there and spin the wool and get wet, and then Darren went out and spun the wool and he got wet, and people were standing under the gazebo taking the photos. Well, when we first got there, we didn't realize that there was a homeless person actually in this gazebo on the bench, covered up. And by the time we were done, we were all talking to her. You know, she was just a part of our group, and I think she enjoyed it, and I certainly enjoyed it. I gave her some water, you know, thing of water, and so on and so forth. But I mean, it was just an enjoyable experience because we included her in what we were doing. And so anyway, just to kind of sidetrack for a quick second back to that.
You know, but that's a very valid point to come back to homeless or less fortunate people, or folks who may have a mental illness, whom we will find on the street from time to time. They're not demons.
No. Exactly. I mean, you're straightforward and friendly, and you get a different reaction.
You may find folks who are bitter, who are angry, who don't want to interact with you. Okay, it's their choice. Let them be.
Mm-hmm. Exactly, let them be. Okay, other places to shoot. Caravana. That's a huge thing. Everybody likes shooting this kind of stuff. Now, Caravana has its own set of challenges. Now we're talking about, you know, partially clothed women, lots of dancing. It's a huge party, same as maybe Pride Parade, something like that. Parades in general. I guess for that, it's just the same rule. It's in public, and they're doing this, and they understand that people are going to be taking their photos. So go for it, right?
There, it's more of a protection of your gear than it is protection of your photography rights. You know, just know that a lot of people go to that, you know, type of event, you know, with theft on their mind. So keep your gear close to you, keep it strapped to you by at least 2 different types of straps. I always wear my cargo pants that have zippers on the pockets, and just, you know, keep that in mind.
Yeah, and I think that that's very good guidance just in general. I mean, anytime you're in crowds, or even if you're going to a foreign location that you've never been to.
You have no idea what that means, though, Ross. You've never had a situation in a foreign place.
You know, and everybody knows it because I'm not embarrassed by what happened. I got robbed, just like lots of tourists get robbed, and it was done very quickly,
very professionally.
Very professionally, if you can call it that. It was a very sophisticated attack, and it happened literally in seconds. So, and for a lot of people, street photography really only happens when they're traveling, right? You're on tour. You know, we saw. So, for example, our friend Chris submitted some photos for the Newmarket Camera Club photo contest, and she took them when she was in Venice. Right, and there are some marvelous things that happen in Venice. There are the masked balls. There's the dancing in St. Mark's Square. You know, it looks like an incredible place to go photograph. But what kind of photographs are they? Well, actually, they're street.
Mm-hmm.
Right.
Because they're shot in the street. They're shot in public. They're photographs of people whom the photographer may not know well or know at all.
Right.
Mm-hmm.
And so I think part of the consideration when we talk about street photography is, and I think Gabe raised a really good point, is it's not just about what can you do to protect the subjects. It's what are you doing to protect yourself?
Mm-hmm.
Are you aware of your environment? You know, are you walking around in condition orange all the time because you're seeing amazing stuff?
Mm-hmm.
But you do need to, in places where you've not been, you do need to. Caravana is a great example. You know, 99% of the folks who go to Caravana, they just want to have fun.
Mm-hmm.
They want to participate. They want to either, dance beside the parade. They want to see the music. They want to see the people. It's supposed to be a joyful event. But what do we hear about Caravana from the media party?
Shootings, the stabbings, the theft.
Crime. And, look, I'm not from the Caribbean. I don't know anything. I would call myself ignorant of the cultural history of that part of our planet, but I don't believe that most of the folks from there are there to be criminals. I think most of them are there to have a darn good time.
I think anytime you have a huge group of people, there's a risk. Now, I'm also, like, Ross, you and I, and Gabriel, you and I, all three of us have shot together at the Zombie Walk, and here's a situation where you have more than 10,000 people in the streets of Toronto, most of which are dressed with blood and scars and tears and costumes, and, like, there could be all kinds of crime, and you wouldn't even know if they got punched in the face because they've got blood anyways.
Well, no, that's true.
But what I loved about it was the fact that we can walk around with our cameras. I didn't have any fear in me at all. Maybe that was the ignorant side of me, or maybe the naive side of me, but I didn't have any fear. And you take a picture and you show the person your photo, and the reaction you get, oh, can you take another one? Oh, can you take another one? Here, let me try this, and let me try that. I'm using my off-camera flash. I'm taking my time and getting all these different shots. And because I had that kind of experience, now Daytripper is the official photographer for the Zombie Walk. We're going to have a booth. We're going to have, what did we call them earlier today, Gabriel?
Walkers.
Yes, we're going to have walkers roaming the crowds and shooting the zombies with their cameras. So it's going to be a completely different vibe. I didn't even think until we started this conversation just now about the security factor. So this is something that I guess I'm going to have to rethink.
Well, it really is, and I think for folks who want to develop some of that, like Glenn said, hey, I'm a bit uncomfortable walking up to people and talking to them. Whether you like zombies or not, the Zombie Walk is a terrific school to learn how to walk up to folks and just ask them to take their photograph.
It really builds the comfort level.
You say that for Zombie Walk. You could say that for Caravana. You could say that for Pride. So one of my former students, a great photographer that we know, Fernando, the year we were working together, he said, I'm uncomfortable taking pictures of people that I don't know. So I'm going to go try and shoot Pride. He really, that's putting a big challenge up in front of himself. And to his credit, he went down and he did a really good job.
Mm-hmm, he did.
His best photos are the ones where he interacted with the people in the parade. And the photo, you can see the photos where he's a spectator, and you can see the photos where he's a participant. And by participant, I don't mean he's marching. I mean he's interacting with the people who choose to be there.
And, again, just to talk about Fernando for a second, give him a lot of credit because he also asked to join my group shooting the Vaughan Film Festival. Yeah. And here's another example of a very difficult situation to shoot. And he sat in for one of the people who couldn't make one of the nights, and he liked it so much, he asked if he can come back for the big gala event, and he came for that as well. And it was just a really great experience.
I think this is a great way that you can develop some of your own confidence. Go to the Zombie Walk, because those folks want to be there. They've made themselves up, so other people will look at them. They are perfect subjects to learn to walk up to somebody and say, hey, do you mind?
Right.
Comic-Con is another great example.
Mm-hmm.
right? As you know, we think about what Blake's done. He goes to all the Comic Cons. He takes a lot of photographs there. And again, I don't think you need to focus on purely revealing costumes. There is that 12-year-old YouTube adolescent male sect that's going to do that. But these are people who put a lot of time and a lot of effort into their costumes. And one of the things that I thought was pretty cool about some of the stuff that Blake was posting is it wasn't all girls in chainmail bikinis.
No, Blake has a great approach to it, though. Blake is a fan of the culture, and he understands it, and he sees it from a different perspective. In fact, just to talk about Blake for a quick second, his show Geared is coming back on the air, and that's what that's all about, is his appreciation for the geek culture and all that kind of stuff. So,
and again, so I think in the context of how do I learn to do street, go to these places. Go to a Star Trek convention.
Yeah,
Actually,
go somewhere where in the
Natalie,
beginning. Yeah, where when you walk up to somebody who's walking down the street drinking a coffee at Zombie Walk and hold up your camera, they go, "Arr!" and they get instantly jump into character. And the first year that Trish and I went, she came up and asked a group of 4 zombies, "Hey, can I take your picture?" And they're like, "Yeah!" And they got they got into their character, right? And they started lumbering towards, and they're like, "Hey, let's attack your husband." So I'm laying on the ground, and they're going like that. I'm trying to beat him off with my camera, and she's shooting them. It was fantastic, and they were coming up with ideas for her to shoot.
It's when you get to interact, and this is why I'm such an advocate of interaction. When you get to interact with your subject, you get such better work.
for sure.
You're not a spectator; you're a participant.
Mm-hmm. Well, on that note,
sorry, Brian. I just wanted, because Don Hennessy had chimed in earlier, and you remember? I don't know if you remember last year, Brian. We had one of the monthly challenges at the Camera Club when Don was still coming out. He submitted a photograph of an older gentleman with long white hair and a long white beard, very tight crop shot, and I think, if I remember correct, Don said the gentleman was not well off. But Don interacted with him, and there's a power in that photograph where, oh wait, he's talked to the guy sees the camera, the guy's looking into the camera, that you will never get from I'm shooting from my hip pocket through my trench coat.
Have to have the trench coat.
that other fellow was talking about.
It's true. No, I totally agree. So, okay, on that note, the interaction between you and your subject when you're doing street photography, I think, is extremely important. And as a photographer and as a person with an intelligence and as somebody with artistic sense, you have to decide when that's appropriate and when it's not. I don't think there's a right and wrong. I think that depending on the style you're after, you can make that decision and make that happen. But legally, if you're in public, go for it. If you're in a private situation, be aware, know that it's not necessarily going to happen. Also, if G20 Summit is going on and you're by an airport, don't bring your camera. Certain things you just don't do, right?
Well, and actually, I wanted to bring up a quick point on that, and I'm just going to do a quick screen share here. So let me know when you can see it.
Yeah.
There you go. So this picture here.
Nice.
Is that yours?
Yeah. So this picture, guy on a bench having a cigarette. This picture, one of my favorites. This picture here, which I love, and this picture here, which I've gotten a lot of positive feedback from. These are all taken from my car. The nice thing about Toronto when you're doing street photography is that you never exceed 4 kilometers an hour. And one of my favorite things, especially for pictures like this, is going out in terrible, terrible, terrible weather, because you hardly ever move. And you get fantastic images of people in, abnormal situations. And so, if you want to get street photography and you're nervous, now again, be careful, blah, blah, blah. But I take a lot of pictures from my car while going 3 kilometers an hour down Eglinton or down the Danforth or something like that. And there's a lot of really cool pictures to be had.
Mm-hmm.
No, I think you're right, Gabe. The only caution I would offer is that could make people comfortable that they never interact with their subject.
Mm-hmm.
Right? Now, and maybe that's the only way it's going to work for them. Peace,
Yeah.
right? But I think if you can get out and you can interact, I think you become a better photographer.
Mm-hmm.
I think you become a better person, though, if you think about it. I mean, a lot of people come out of their shell because of experiences like that.
Yeah.
And it's truth that you might, but really, and I know this is going to sound all humanist philosopher, but why do we make photographs?
So many reasons.
Why do we do this?
To capture something.
Freeze a moment in time.
Yeah, who's it for?
You shoot for me, I shoot for Gabriel, Gabriel shoots for you.
Okay, then I'm probably failing.
I wanted to talk to you about that.
Good luck with that. I'm shooting for me, but why am I shooting? Because there's something there that matters. Right? You know, whether it's, I go to one of Brian's Daytripper Raptor days, why do I go? Well, because I like to help folks be successful, but I love raptors, and even if Sam says they're stupid, I look into their eyes and there is something primal and ancient that really appeals to me. Doesn't make it right for anybody else, right? If I go shoot architecture, why do I photograph a building? Well, there's something there. Is it
story to tell,
or does it evoke a memory, or is it a, if I look at at work in the modernist format, like a Frank Lloyd Wright piece of architecture, I know it's Frank Lloyd Wright, but I don't think Frank Lloyd Wright. I'm actually thinking Howard Roark. And that won't mean anything to anybody who isn't a fan of the Fountainhead. And
those are your reasons.
But it's my reason to make that photograph. If I'm making a photograph of a person, why am I doing that? Is it because I'm trying to capture their essence, or steal their soul, or is there something I'm seeing there that is inspiring to me or helping me grow as a person, reveal something to me about myself that might be uncomfortable? It goes back to talking about Vivian Mayer. Why did she make the photograph she did? Well, she was a very private person. There's some speculation we don't know that helped her deal with her own lack of sociability. I don't know, man. But I have to believe that interaction is powerful. And I see that we've got Don, you're very welcome, because I think that your photograph of that gentleman was brilliant. And I think we need to thank Blake because he's given us some good examples of other events that you can go to where there are going to be some really wonderful people who put a lot of time into their costumes or their particular affiliation, be it anime, steampunk, Comic-Con, whatever. Those are great places where you can go.
And I think any activity, as a photographer, I think one of the biggest frustrations is comfort, being on either side of the camera. And, working at Henry's has kind of eliminated that comfort on the front side of the camera for me. At any given point, people are taking pictures of me to test focus or to do this or to do that. So I'm fairly used to that. Plus, with Ross, we've done the TV show, and you're gracious enough to ask me to do a game with you in a couple episodes on your new show, the Photo Video Guy on Rogers, which I'm very anxious to see on September 28th.
Thanks for the plug, but it was awesome having you on the show.
Well, the point being,
we work well together.
We work well. I love working with you, and also I feel very comfortable now in front of the camera. So for live shows like this, or if I was on Julia Suppa's show, it's something that I'm a little bit more comfortable with being in front of the camera. I'm still not as comfortable being on the back side of the camera trying to take pictures of people, and this is where Zombie Walk has helped me immensely. The Vaughn Film Festival as well, shooting that event was fantastic. I can't wait to do that again coming up soon. We should also mention, I mean, this is a fantastic topic, and to be perfectly honest, we went way too long talking about things, but I think it was worth it. I think it's a valuable conversation that we were having. And so what we're going to do is we're going to postpone the photo review. We're not going to postpone, but we're not going to do the photo review. We are going to announce the winners, and we're going to give you next week's challenge. But that's just going to be in a few seconds. Before we get to that, though, I'm just going to kind of go over a few things that are coming up with Daytripper. First of all, speaking of street photography, we are doing the zombie walk. We talked about that quickly. The Vaughn Film Festival is something that I'm really looking forward to, and those guys are going to be on our show coming up in November. Next week, though, best show ever, as far as I'm concerned. I'm so looking forward to it.
Cornucopia.
Total cornucopia of guests and everything. Next week is our 100th anniversary show. It's our 100th show, and I don't know about how everybody else feels, but to me, to do a weekly show and to do 100 episodes is awesome. I didn't think we would get there. Us and our 12 viewers. It's been a lot of fun doing this, and we have fun doing it. So if we're giving you guys any help, if we're giving you any inspiration, when you're watching this on YouTube, click like, click subscribe, share this with your friends, let them know what we're doing, because I guess we've got some good shows coming up, and I'm stalling right now. I'm trying to pull up our future show list. I had a meltdown with my computer earlier. We have some great shows. Next week we're having the amazing Jesse Pesky has just agreed to come on. We're going to have Raymond Barlow, the wildlife photographer that we had on for our digiscoping episode, is coming back on our show. And Ross has agreed to come back on our show again next week, which I'm super stoked about. Who else do we have? I can't open this thing. It's taking forever.
McKinnon?
No, Peter can't make it. I haven't heard back from Peter yet. Okay, Simeon C. back on episode number 6. He was our night photography expert. Brian Watts is coming back on. Navi has not agreed to come back on yet.
Oh, jeez.
I know. Like all the people you're hoping. Read the notes, man. Brian Watts, episode number 4, our sports photography expert. Brian was interviewed by Ross and I as well on our TV show. Blake is going to be back on the show. Of course, Gabriel will be there. I'll be there. And we're still waiting for some more people to reply. But, it's exciting. If we have too many people, that's a good thing, too. We'll just talk about random stuff that happened in our past 100 shows.
Yeah.
All kinds of cool topics to talk about. We've had some naked shows. We've had some non-naked shows. It's been fun. All right, and also coming up on some future shows, the week after next week is my second favorite show of all time, because the amazing Taya Munster will be back on talking about the Toronto Zombie Walk and going over photos and talking about all the great things that the Zombie Walk is doing. And so that's one of my favorite things to talk about, of course. You guys all know that. It sounds boring. I talk about it too much. Other future shows we have coming up. The Vaughn Film Festival guys are coming up on October 15th. Halloween special on October 22nd. October 29th, we're getting into low-light dramatic photography tips. So the night photography classes we do, we're going to kind of roll that into the show and talk about how you can get some really cool low-light photography tricks and so on. I don't know if anybody's noticed, but it's getting darker a lot sooner out there. Mm-hmm. So we're going to have a lot of time to do this night photography stuff. And then Jesse's coming back. What's that?
Not cool, bro.
Ah, come on, I love it. Jesse's coming back on November 5th to talk about how she got her photo in a gallery and how that worked out for her. Lots of cool shows coming up. We've got people like Victor Woodhouse coming on our show. Ross, you're coming back for that episode, talking about the York Regional Forests and some of the great things that they have going on. So anyway, that's all in the future. But while we're here right now, let's get back to our show and get into our photo challenge winners. Here we go. Okay, I've got the picks up here already. Unfortunately, as I say, it's been a long conversation, which is, I'm not going to say unfortunately. I had a great time talking about this stuff. I think it was worth talking about. I think we really needed to do it. And we have our photos up here in just a second. We didn't get ridiculous volume of photos, so I'm going to hope that people understand that we can just kind of thank everybody for submitting their photos this week. The challenge was change of season. Now, the part I noticed that was really cool was in the week from last week to this week, the seasons didn't really change a whole lot, did they? Like, there's been people posting photos of, you know, this day and then this day, and there's not much season change. So, Fred, thank you for going out there to the same place at Fairy Lake and shooting both of those photos for us. Awesome stuff. And everybody else took some really cool shots. But we're going to pick the final 3 photos of the day. Third choice. Third place, I should say. And again, third place is going to win the lens pen. You can come see me at Henry's to pick these up, guys. We'll go to Joseph Nacarado for his Autumn Decay photo. So, well done, Joe. Second place will get the Sidekick and the lens pen kit. This goes to Rhonda Starr for one day it's summer, next day it's fall. She had 2 pictures of the leaves, and one was all crinkled. They both fell from the same tree. Very cool. First place is a newcomer. Actually, you know what? This is the second time she's entered and the second time she's won something. This is going to go to Rita. Well done for your seasonal clothing shot. Young lady wearing half from one season from summer and half from the fall. Very well done. No photoshopping by the looks of it. It was just a really great shot. And if anybody's interested in seeing these photos, please go to the Daytripper Photo community on Google+ and check them out. They're right there under Weekly Photo Challenge. Very cool stuff. All right.
Awesome.
Anything else to add to tonight's show, guys? Before we say, oh yes, I guess I got to give the
theme for next week.
Yes, the theme for next week. Thank you. And the theme for next week, and I'm glad you added this little rule here, Ross. I think you added that, didn't you?
I did.
Excellent. Good choice. Next week, since we're going to be on our 100th anniversary show, and we're probably just going to end up yammering and having a great time talking about all the different things we've done, we're going to give you a simple challenge, but you cannot use your cell phone. Thank you, Ross. And that challenge is take a selfie. So let's see your selfies, guys. Finally, we're going to have a selfie challenge. Not even through our phone episodes did we ask you to do a selfie. It's like the cardinal sin for a lot of people, but it'll be very interesting because I think we've got a really creative group of people, and selfie does not need to be necessarily critiqued. It can just be a lot of fun to watch it and see what you guys do. So
Lots of duck face.
Yeah, lots of duck face. Actually, the winner of the photo contest will have no duck face. Just saying. And thank you, Lena, for watching. That's awesome.
One final tip with street photography, one thing that I've noticed and I've played around with before, if you are walking down with a big camera and you stop in the middle of the sidewalk and you hold it up and hold it there for about 15 seconds, when you pull it back down, there will be 8 people around you going, what are you looking at? And they'll have their Blackberries out and they're trying to figure out what you're focusing on. Sometimes I just do it for nothing, just for the fun of it.
Okay, you see, you're bringing now you're bringing back memories. So when I worked for Dawn at Records on Wheels in 1974, which was Yonge near Wellesley, when it was boring in the store, we would walk out on the Yonge Street and point at the roof across the street. And we'd just go, ah, and then wait for the people.
Okay.
Nice.
Fun things to do when you're feeling bored and want to piss people off. And like we a lot of time do, we're going to share a quote of the week this week. And this week's quote is from the gentleman that Ross mentioned earlier, Jay Maisel. He says, "Always carry a camera. It's tough to shoot people without one." Some people would argue that. Don't you think, Ross?
Yeah, I think that's a very good piece of advice.
All right. Thank you, everybody, for watching us this week. Thank you, Ross, for being up with us tonight. And thank you for being on the past bunch of shows. It's been really great having you on our show. I know that it's inconvenient for you to make it to the show sometimes, and I really appreciate you taking the time out of your day to be here.
Appreciate the opportunity to be with you guys. It's always good fun.
Awesome. And Gabriel, as always, thank you for your support for Daytripper and for everything that you do for the show. And where can people get a hold of you to hire you for your photography, man? Because we didn't even talk about you do this kind of stuff too. Excuse me.
Yeah, well, I mainly focus on, I just did a fun special event last weekend, some engagement shoots, got a few weddings coming up. We specialize in special events, portraiture, like headshots for a lot of people are getting professional headshots done for their Facebook and LinkedIn profiles and things like that nowadays. Yeah, weddings, bar mitzvahs, you name it. So, yeah, if you want to contact us, bousquetphotography.ca, and we'd love to help out and help capture the moments of your event, well, so you don't have to, and you can just go and enjoy your event.
It's nice having some fun people, you and Trish and all of the other folks that you work with occasionally. It's just a good group of photographers to have on site for sure.
Yeah.
And Ross, I'm sorry, I didn't even mention. Have you got anything coming up for the photo video guy?
So a couple of things, you know, not to take away from Gabe. I do not do weddings or any events like that. But like Gabe, I'm also encountering a lot of folks who are looking for professional headshots. That kind of stuff I do for those who are so inclined. What I'm trying to do now is put together, now that Photoshop World is over and a bunch of other things are finally over, I'm putting together the fall mentorship programs that I'll be offering through the Photo Video Guy. Typically, it's an hour a week for either 6 or 8 weeks. And the first one is going to be on Flash.
Nice.
So we'll be looking to put something together, and basically it'll be assignment-based, but also working with Hot2 and Studio Flash here in my studio, learning how to use modifiers and all the kit that goes with that.
Excellent. Well, they're always good classes to take from you, so good luck with that. And if anybody is interested in coming on any day trips with Daytripper Photo, we've got 3 left. The Bring on the Night class this Sunday, September 28th, teaching night photography and how to get that really sharp photo when there's very little light to work with, and also how to make things really fun to shoot. Also, Algonquin, October 5th. It's going to be a lot of fun. That's our biggest trip of the year, and it should be a lot of fun for our guys to go up to Algonquin Park. Hopefully we'll see some moose. It's looking like it'll be 100% peak foliage for us this weekend, October 5th, that is. And then the last session of the year, as Ross mentioned earlier, is one of our falconry sessions. The Birds of Prey trips are fantastic. And Ross, you were with me on the Y Marsh day trip we just had a couple weeks ago, and the falconry session we had up there was just disappointing.
It wasn't like Sam's. Hey Brian, would it be okay to remind people of the Scott Kilby Worldwide Photo Walk Saturday, October 11th?
Absolutely okay, because I'll be there with you too. So
one downtown Newmarket. Awesome. There's no cost to sign up to come out. Everybody is welcome. Doesn't matter what kind of camera you have. Please go to worldwidephotowalk.com.
Excellent.
And search for Newmarket and sign up because there's plenty of space left.
Do it. I'm going to do that as soon as we're off the air. Okay. So thank you all so much again, and thank you all for watching. And we're going to say goodnight. So. Good night. That's it. Stop and broadcast. See you guys.
Bye.
Okay.
Bye.